A lot of people think Buddhist psychology is just about meditation and mindfulness, maybe worshiping the Buddha or something like that, but it's actually a really deep dive into the mechanics of the mind, emotions, and can reveal why we think, feel, and act the way we do. At the heart of this stuff is the concept of three root personality types. The Buddha speaks about these early on, and information about this can be found in the early Buddhist texts. The question for you is, which personality type best matches how you think, how you feel, and why you act the way you do? So the question for you is, are you driven by desire, fueled by anger, or always caught in some kind of confusion? These are the three core tendencies: greed, hatred, and delusion. Other words for these might be, instead of greed, you might say the grasping type of personality. Instead of hatred, you might call it an aversive personality. And delusion is a pretty apt term, but you might also call it confused or ignorant based personality. In any case, these qualities are the very roots of human suffering. But there is good news, and that's why we're talking about this, because it's not all negative. If you can understand these patterns, you can gain the power to transform them and completely unlock the path to self awareness, compassion, more patience, wisdom, and ideally, eventually, a lot more enlightenment. So let's cover the three personality types and see what each one is like. Let's see which one matches us best. So if we're the greed-based personality or the grasping type, we're naturally drawn towards pleasure, beauty, and comfort, usually come across as optimistic, upbeat, cheerful, maybe even charismatic. If we're this type, we enjoy sensual experiences, whether it's food, looking at art, being in relationships, or even intellectual stimulation. The thing here is an attachment to material possessions or pleasurable states of body and mind. If we're this type of personality, we can be overly indulgent, attached, or even manipulative in the ways we seek more pleasure. So the key challenge for this type of personality is craving, which just leads to more and more attachment, more and more suffering when things don't go their way. To balance that, if we're this type of personality, we need to cultivate more renunciation, just learning to let go, learning to appreciate whatever's happening without clinging to it. So you could do a meditation on impermanence or contemplate the suffering that happens when we try to grab onto things too hard. So now let's talk about the hatred-based personality or the aversive personality. If we're this type of person, we're naturally critical, analytical, and perceptive, focusing on flaws, focusing on imperfections and injustices. Typically come across as prone to anger, impatient, or irritable, but especially when confronted with what we perceive as stupidity or unfairness. If we're this type of personality, we can have a strong sense of morality, but we can also become way too rigid and self righteous. So, if we're this type, the challenge is the main obstacle is aversion. Just constantly thinking and feeling, I don't want this, I don't want this, make that go away, make it stop, I'm not interested in this, turn it off. But that can manifest as resentment, judgment, or even hostility. To balance that stuff out, we need to cultivate more loving kindness, training the mind to see the good in other people, and to try to approach the world with more gentleness. Practices like gratitude, forgiveness, and focusing on loving kindness, friendship, those kind of meditations can help us transform our critical energy into wise, compassionate action. Now let's talk about the third and last personality type, which we call the delusion-based personality. If we're this type, we're often indecisive, confused, or just lacking strong opinions about what's going on. We have difficulty seeing things clearly and making firm commitments. We typically come across as passive, indifferent, aloof, or disconnected from emotions, disconnected from reality. And if we're this personality type, we may struggle with procrastination or just always feeling like there's not a clear direction to go in. So the main challenge for this personality type is ignorance, but it manifests as distraction, confusion, and lack of clarity. To overcome this, we need to develop mindfulness, clear comprehension, bringing more and more awareness to our thoughts, actions, and experiences. If we're this type, we need meditation practices that focus on direct, careful observation of reality, such as vipassana or insight meditations. Then we can cut through the illusions, the delusions, and get more clarity. Those are the three types, and each personality type has its strengths and weaknesses and strengths. But there are ways to provide more happiness and more equanimity. So for the greed-based types, we need to practice renunciation and impermanence. If we're the hatred-based, aversive-based type, we need to cultivate more loving kindness and patience and compassion. If we're the deluded type, we need to develop more mindfulness. By recognizing our dominant tendency, we can actively work the antidotes. You could think of those as antidotes. We can not just sit in our suffering, but turn these root qualities into paths towards awakening. Let it be clarified that the Buddhist path does not seek to suppress human nature, rather to refine it and purify it, which leads towards greater self-awareness, greater compassion, greater insight, greater equanimity, more peace of mind, and ultimately, liberation, complete liberation from all forms of greed, hatred, and delusion, complete liberation from all suffering.